My name is Martin Scorsese. I'm the director and co-writer of the film Killers of the Flower Moon. In early 2021, we were in Oklahoma and we started to shoot the picture. I began to absorb the world around me. I was sort of immersed in the world of the Osage. And as we were shooting, I had the impression that there was something special about what I was experiencing as we shot the picture and being in that world. And I felt that what would we leave the Osage at the end of the film? What image? What would represent the sense of what I was feeling and the journey I was taking with them in the making of that picture?
True Crime Stories has been brought to you through the courtesy of J. Edgar Hoover and the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I knew one thing. I wanted to end it with the radio show, which, by the way, is an actual radio show that occurred. I mean, we restaged it, of course. But this radio show, in a way, at least for white America, was what this tragedy became. Basically a form of entertainment for the radio listening audience. But my feeling was that we needed something at the very end of the film, beyond the radio show, that reflected what I felt around me and experienced as we were making the film with the Osage. And of course, it should reflect aspects of the Osage culture itself. So later that June, I was invited to several Illuminating dances. The sacred tradition of the Osage dates back to the late 1800s and takes place under a circular arbor. I was very taken by it because what I witnessed was the expression of the very spirit and culture of the Osage people. Their songs, their movements, it was like one organism, all one being. And this became ultimately my inspiration for the final shot in the film.
Martin Scorsese attended the dance in Grey Horse during June, and I happened to be the head singer there, and somebody noticed Martin sitting in the crowd, and I thought to myself, okay, well, they're going to be asking something of us for too long.
Our illuminating is the dance for the first son, the playground of the eldest son, and all the Osage people hold their sons in high regard. So this is their dance. It's ceremonials. There are powwows. It's a whole different regard than our illuminating ceremonies. We don't video them, record them. We don't take pictures in there or anything. We keep it very sacred.
We learned that any recording of the illuminating is not permitted, but that we would be allowed to film another kind of Osage dance, one that would have the same energy as what we saw in the illuminating.
You know, we all come back for our Grey Horse illuminating, and we want that good spirit, that WahZhaZhe, that spirit. Mr. Scorsese felt that, and that's what he wanted. So Mr. Scott Big Horse composed a song to try to give what Mr. Scorsese was wanting. That was a gift giving, I think.
I know what Scorsese saw, and we told him in the beginning, we can't give you that. That's ours. That belongs to us. But we'll get you as close as we can to it.
Now, our Osage cultural consultant, John Williams, he approved of this. He liked the idea very much. The Osage musician, Scott George, with the help of Van Big Horse, wrote an original song for it titled WahZhaZhe, a song for my people.
When we filmed the celebration dance, I enjoyed being there with my family, dressing, and there was uncertainty about exactly what it all would be, but we knew it was an important occasion.
I have a daughter and 4 grandkids. We were all part of it, so we all dressed in our Osage clothes.
Even I put on Osage clothes, and I don't wear them. I don't wear them, but I did because it just was good to be a part of a feeling, even apart from the movie. It was all the Osage people, they came together.
I mean, Mr. Scorsese could have stopped the film at any point. He didn't have to make us a part of the ending of that story.
Well, I'm Scott George. I'm Osage and Sioux. I've been a singer for my people at least 50 years. Our music is shared with the Poncas and Omahans. A lot of our music disappeared when we moved from Kansas. And so when we came here, our people sat here and put all those things away for Christianity, basically, and then felt the void of not having that. And so the Kaw people and the Ponca people brought these drums over here for us over 150 years ago. So there are songs in our dance that have people's names in them, and there are descendants and relatives of those people. That's their great-grandpa's song or great-great-grandfather's song. And they're talking about his deeds, what he did, either in a battlefield or something funny that might have happened. They make songs about it.
Hawe dahe pashe, wawe hoen pi combra, iniapi, WahZhaZhe abria, Tracy Moore, WahZhaZhe abria, Pasuli Minkshe, Tisho Washtake, Dawala abria. I introduced myself. I said, hello, how are you, everybody? I want to wahoing everybody, and that's a sign of respect for everybody. And so I went into my Osage name, which is Iniapi, my clan, Tijo Washtake, Golden Eagle Clan, and I'm from the Gray Horse District. I have been working for the Osage Nation for 20 years, and I teach our Osage language, culture to our high school, our community. My Iko, Mary Osage, come from the Pasuli district. She was fluent in Osage, and I've learned a lot from her growing up in our language, our traditional clothing. I think a lot of our people are passionate about our WahZhaZhe Ok'an, our Osage ways. That's that connection we have with, through language, to our Shewai, our ancestors.
I think to understand who you are and where you are, you have to know where you came from. My name is Billy Ponca, and my great aunt, Lily Morrell Burkhart, she had left her home and her estate under the care of the Oklahoma Historical Society, and she wanted to represent and pay tribute to her relative, which is Chief Pahuska. And so in order for them to satisfy the will, all they really had to do was name it Whitehair. So they sent Dr. Dan Swan to establish the Whitehair Memorial, to make it become known in the community, started classes in language and different aspects of our Osage culture, and to hire someone to take his place. That was me, gratefully.
My name is Wilson Pipestem. I'm from the Gray Horse District. I'm Osage, from the Wilson Kirk family, descendant of Wilson Kirk. After going to Oklahoma State University, Stanford Law School, Washington, D.C. for 18 years. Been back in Oklahoma in the last 14 years or so. I created Pipestem Law. I've been doing that ever since. This home is such a nice, comfortable place to be. I can remember playing soccer out here as a little boy and being on this porch and drinking lemonade and water that Ms. Mason would bring out. And the homes in Killers of the Flower Moon, my grandma's home, this is what they look like. So it's a nice place to be.
My name is Jim Gray. I published my own newspaper back in the 90s, the Native American Times. And then one day I got the crazy wild hair to run for office. And I ran for chief of the Osage Nation in 2002 and spent the next 8 years in that position. This is the Osage Nation Museum. It is the oldest tribal museum in the country. And the exhibit that's up right now is the original Latte exhibit. And these are the original Osage head right owners or shareholders that became these wealthy people years later. And they're not just names on a list. These people had lives. They had interesting stories to tell. This is Clarence Gray. He's my grandfather, original Latte. And his wife, my grandmother, Jenny. This generation of Osages had to redefine what it meant to be Osage in modern times, because the ancient history that they grew up with, those elders didn't make it. They died from disease or exposure, removals, despair, God knows what. And so they had gaps in their cultural education of what it meant to be Osage. They had to start over. There ain't an Osage alive that doesn't have a connection to somebody in these panels.
My name is Frances Williams. I worked for Indian Health Service for about 22 years, but with the federal government, all in all, about 28 years. Indian Health Service was started with the federal government's treaties with our tribes. And in order to get our lands, they had to sign treaties to always provide our education and health needs. My great-great-uncle, Arthur Bonnycastle, was the first American over the Great Wall of China during the Boxer Rebellion, and that is documented. And he was chief at the time of these murders, the Reign of Terror.
In the old days, we would fight these people. 20 years ago, when I fought overseas in the Boxer Rebellion, I could see my enemy, and I knew who I had to kill.
And he was on his way to Washington, D.C., and he died mysteriously on the train. My mother, she told me, my family always believed that he was murdered because what he was going to do was protest some things that the government wanted to do to the Osage tribe, and he was poisoned. I said, well, didn't the police investigate it or anything? She said, well, no, not really. She said, in those days, they didn't want to. I said, well, how did they determine his death? And she said, well, they said that he was a drug addict. And I said, oh, well, so that's convenient, isn't it?
This is Henry Roan. He's my great-grandfather, my mom's grandfather, and he's the one that was murdered in the Killers of the Flower Moon.
For you, sir, $40. How much, $40? $40. All right, I got $35 cash for you right now. 35's a deal. Come on, listen, that'll get it done. Come on. Y'all are gonna make a pretty picture. Y'all come on this way.
Henry was sent to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania. There was a policy called assimilation that started with rounding up young kids and sending them hundreds of miles away from their home. They called it a boarding school. In those schools, they shaved the head of the children that were coming off the train, burned their clothes, taught them skills that would make them good laborers out in the fields or basic trade kind of stuff, and forced Christianity on them and punished them for speaking their language or practicing any part of their culture. This wasn't just done at Osage, this was done all over the country.
My grandmother, Mary, she went to school in Pawhuska. When they got to school, they had to learn a new way. You've heard the stories about the, punishment when they spoke their language. And around here at Gray Horse, not only that, but with the Osage murders, they were afraid to talk about that as well.
I knew the story behind Killers of the Flower Moon, but I didn't know as much about it because it was really never talked about that much. My parents knew about it too, but my grandmother didn't talk about it. I think it was a sad part of their lives, and my grandmother is probably going through her own trauma at the time. It was a hush-hush thing, and I think they were afraid to mention it, that they might be targeted or something.
Henry Roan was made into the FBI story that came out in the 1950s. And even though they changed the name of the tribe, location, all that stuff, they didn't change the name of Henry Roan. As a journalist and a publisher of the Native American Times, I had written many stories at the time about different movies that were being made with a Native theme in it, but didn't have any Indian consultants, or some of the actors were not even Native. Fast forward to 2017. I read that there was a bidding war going on for a book about the Osage murders called Killers of the Flower Moon. I had legitimate concerns that it would be nice if the Osages could tell their own story.
Killers of the Flower Moon was brought to our attention probably 5 years before they started filming. Mr. Scorsese came to Chief Standing Bear and talked to him about it. And they collaborated and decided it would be something that needed to be done. My husband, John Williams Sr., was asked by Chief Standing Bear to be the main cultural advisor for this film. And at first, he didn't know whether he wanted to take it on or not. He said, I really don't know what to do or what I'm going to do. And I said, well, it's interesting. You're going to tell them what you know about our culture and our people. I said, you need to go and tell them so that we don't get stereotyped. We don't want to be the stereotype Indian. And I think you can do it.
Welcome back to the Osage.
No.
You're always welcome, as you know, and it's so good to see you again.
You too.
You're a great storyteller. when we first met, we had some good conversations. When you walked into the room, you were already going to film here. You were going to use our language department. You were going to work with our people who do costumes. Yeah. It's just any aspect we have, our culture. You came in, hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. We had that dinner at Gray Horse when a number of people got up and spoke. One woman got up and said, don't forget that we want you to understand that aside from, staying away from the cliches and the stereotypes, I should say, of Native Americans, et cetera, that what makes it so troubling is that Ernest and Molly were in love. And I realized that night. And later on, as we explored everything we could in the script, with Eric and myself and Leo, and we still had a story of a police procedural as a whodunit. And Leo was the first to say to me, he said, where's the heart of the story? Mm-hmm. Where's the heart? And I said, well, it's definitely Ernest and Molly.
When Scorsese had those meetings with Standing Bear and with these descendants, he made that commitment to incorporate a lot of what he was hearing about the language and the customs and the culture of the tribe and what did an Osage home look like. And by that time, we had 20 years of institutions already in place, fully funded by the tribe, to teach Robert De Niro how to speak Osage and design an Osage home the way it looked at the time. And we had all the material he needed to produce an Osage naming ceremony or to produce an Osage wedding or an Osage funeral. All those cultural things that just popped off the screen could only have happened if the Osages were ready to help.
My association with the film is through my great aunt, who was Lily Morrell Burkhart. She married Byron Burkhart after the tragedy of the murders. So in essence, he was my great uncle.
You got any whiskey?
Well, you drank it last night.
Only my man can drink my whiskey.
I'm not your man.
He didn't go to prison for his involvement in the Anna Brown killing. He went to prison for getting caught transferring money across state lines.
Byron and I carried it down there.
I had so many people asking me about it through my work. On the microfilm, it reads that Kelsey Morrison and Byron Burkhart drove Anna Brown 3 miles out of Fairfax.
Byron raised her up, pulled her up, kind of held her up.
And Byron Burkhart held her and Kelsey Morrison shot her. Although that's a little more than having a little bit to do with something.
Freeling and Hamilton want to see you at Hales tonight. Talk things over.
When I got to visit with Mr. DiCaprio, can you imagine that? Anyway, I told him, I said, the Byron Burkhart that you're asking me about and wanting information on, I said, I don't know that person. The only person I know is the one that after my aunt had passed away, he would bring me gifts to the house. I mean, it'd be small gifts like, a jar of pecans, he had picked, or, flowers on my birthday or something. So I don't know that Byron Burkhart, and I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't know about all of that.
Grandma Eliza Osage was an original Alatee, and she married George Bighart. And so In the 1920s, it was Eliza Osage Bigheart. She was able to drive and pick out a car of any color she wanted to.
This asthma's holding him back. He just needs a chance. You got your checks. You're unrestricted. Please.
I was fortunate to be cast as an Osage woman buying a car, along with my movie husband, my sister's son, and grandson. Back then, it was like the Pierce Arrows, the most expensive cars. And I thought that was pretty amazing, and it seems like it fit me, that I could play a role that my great-grandmother actually did in real life.
Being a background person, I've never been involved in any kind of a movie, and a lot of other people had not that I met. But I found myself 4 or 5 times, but you know, I was on set 33 times. In the wedding scene, it had Robert De Niro. And I'm right over one of his shoulders. I'm wearing a hat like Minnie Pearl had on Hee Haw. That's what you look for.
People must form a line here for allotment payment.
And then there's a scene where we're waiting on royalty checks. There's a fairly decent picture there.
He told me you was going with Matt Williams for a time.
You talk too much.
I had met Lily Gladstone way before Killers of the Flower Moon. She was the lead in these Mary Catherine Nagel plays. So after I had talked to Mr. Scorsese with the research team, Lily called and said, hey, 3 of the stories you told are now in the new script. Whenever it would storm, my grandma Rose would say, just turn everything off and just be quiet.
Storm, it's powerful. So we need to be quiet for a while.
And when I was a younger kid, I asked her, why do you make us do that? And she said, well, Wakanda, our creator, is powerful, and these elements belong to him. And if we go on like nothing's happening while we have a storm like this, something that might be seen as disrespect, and something could happen to us. So we need to show respect. Just sit still.
It's good for the crops, that's for sure.
Just be still.
I think that's a lesson about who we are as Osage people. Our relationship with God, Wakanda, our creator, is one where a lot of things we do are based on our relationship to the elements.
You look better.
There's one scene where one of the sisters walks down the stairs and the other sister says,
You're my wealth. You know that?
You're my wealth. My grandmother, she used to say that this idea of money as wealth is not an Osage concept. You know, a wealthy person is a person with a sister. When something good happens, your sister will be the first one there. If you do wrong and nobody wants anything to do with you, your sister will stand with you.
You worry too much.
And I thought that the way Mr. Scorsese put that in the film, that's for the Osages to see and hear, that's for us.
When Henry Roan came back as a teenager, the Osage people tried to get him back into his culture, and they arranged a marriage between him and Molly Kyle.
Congratulations.
This is long before Ernest was in the picture.
Sorry to bother you, Uncle. I just need to have some words with you, please.
Of course, Henry. You just go sit over there. I'll be right here.
Henry Roan had become friends with William Hale, the mastermind of a series of killings that is documented in the book and the film.
Well, he just needs to be insured, that's all. It's just a formality, but he needs it.
Well, what about my melancholy?
A little whiskey can help that.
William Hale claimed that Henry Roan owed him money. And then he actually got an insurance policy and put himself in as a beneficiary if Henry were to die.
He owes me a lot of money.
William Hale wasn't the only one doing stuff like this. The whole system was designed to separate Osages from their money by any means necessary, including murder. The reign of terror, as they called it, it was a reign of terror.
One day I decided to pull the job, everything being favorable. So I told
You never get 100% comfortable watching your great-grandfather get murdered, but he couldn't leave it out. It's part of the story.
Did you seek out John Ramsey at your uncle's behest to kill Henry Roan?
Yes, sir.
I did not want the story to end with the trial or Molly leaving Ernest.
What was in the shots?
And I didn't want it to end within the 1930s radio show.
After Molly divorced Ernest, she lived with her new husband, John Cobb, on the reservation.
The scene of the dance at the end of the movie hit me unexpectedly. Scorsese came back after principal photography was done. And he came back to shoot that scene right over here. And I'm so glad he did.
Being a tribal singer referred to as keepers of our music, we were kind of torn as to whether we were going to be participating in that or not. We have people that believe that our songs shouldn't be recorded. They've been handed down for hundreds of years. Van Big Horse was the consultant, language consultant, him and his department were. We talked about a lot of things in regards to the music. Van and I, we started talking about, well, we were going to have to make our own song. Most of us that try to compose songs rely on prayer. So you go and ask the Creator about it first. I pray when I get in the car. That 45 minutes from home to work is my time to think about that.
All right, singers, get ready.
Finally, Van settled on one and I settled on one.
Scott, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Martin came out, introduced himself to the crowd, thanked everybody for being there, kind of telling everybody what he wanted to do, what he wanted to see. And then he allowed me and Van to come out. So we sang mine and then his. But after that, then it was just that, my song over and over and over and over. WahZhaZhe, Nojete Lameo, hey, Wakanda, Lelo, Gakameo, hey, hey, Yahweh, hey, how, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. The words in my song are asking our people, WahZhaZhe, asking our people to stand up. It's simple in regards to the words, but the meaning is to stand up and recognize that you're still here, that you're still on this earth. And Wakanda is our word for God, and Wakanda made it that way. So all the prayers that have been said throughout all these ages and generations have made this happen, that we're still here, we're still thriving, still existing here on this earth.
I have a brother Rock, or Francis Browning Pipestem Jr., and he made the drum that you see in the film. So when my brother says, you know, they asked me to make a drum and have it be in the film, it's easy for me now because my brother's decided it's important to him. So that means I'm all in.
There is a movement and a spirit that comes into our dance. And it relies on us as singers, it relies on the dancers moving, and it relies on the structure that's there. Our people dance in a counterclockwise direction. The tornadoes move in that direction, storms move in that direction. And so that's the way we move.
I was once told that just listen to the drum, and every time you hear that beat, make sure one foot's going in front of the other. Now, and I also was told don't stomp. Don't stomp out there, because we consider it Mother Earth. Be gentle. Be gentle with your steps.
It almost looks like a flower when you look at it from that far up. That's pretty cool that Martin was able to see that in his mind and be able to see that there was a design, a pattern there that he wanted to show everybody.
You know, the singing was good, but they sang hard, and I could tell, you know, they had to push. It was a culmination of feeling like, I feel good about our role in this film. I don't know what the final product's going to look like, but I believe that Mr. Scorsese had kept his promises to us to that point.
Everybody put their heart and soul in it. They wore their best. And that's one thing about Osage people, they wear their best. They wear their finest blankets, and they represent themselves in the Osage ways very well.
I thought it was really, really nice that they had us all together, because we were all Osage, and we were all in this historic film, historic time. And to me, it was a lot of gratitude that Mr. Scorsese was showing us for being a part of it. And in return, I think it was a lot of gratitude toward him that we showed up. And I think it also just shows that we're here, we're strong, and we're not going anywhere.
I think that day as we shot that last scene, there was a real sense of community that brought us all together. For me, the ending communicates a truth, and that truth is the very core spirit of the Osage Nation still existing and continuing to transform and evolve in the modern world. It was the past, present, and future, all represented in this one dance.
Since time immemorial, we have always had to fight to protect what is ours. And even when the government made our children go away to school and forbid them to speak their language or to practice any of their traditions or their culture, we're still here. We are still the Osage people. And I believe we will always be here.